25, and 30, 35, 40, 45, 55, 65, and 75, and sold.
The Call of the Auction Man. Starring Rich Ramp. In this episode, Rich gives the best items sold at auction, and in a two-part series, in this, part 1, he gives answers to some of the most frequently asked questions about auctions. Later, Rich digs into the value of some unique treasures. And I'm Laura Baker, and we're here with the Auction Man. Decluttering your home and your life is incredibly in vogue these days. But more important, getting rid of things you don't need can save you space, improve the environment, brighten your home's look, and make you some money. Our auction man talks about some of the best items that can be sold at an auction.
A couple of the top things to sell at auction are coins and guns. Tools rank up there too, but coins and guns might be the two very best things to sell at auction because you get such a wide variety of people that want to buy them. And they will buy them from all over the country. If we sell coins and guns, most of the time we're selling them online and live. So we're doing it in a simulcast auction so that we're doing a live bidding in our building with online bidding going on at the very same time. 50% of those sales, if we're selling coins and guns, will go online. So they push the price. So that means they were probably the second bidder on the other 50%. So they definitely push the price. And that's one of the most important things you need in an auction is a second bidder. After that, I think that antiques, collectibles, and that collectibles and antiques kind of can join a lot of things together, like older cars, toys. That's a big expandable category when you say antiques and collectible, because then it becomes art and fine art and furniture and tramp art and folk art and different kinds of art. Art's fun to sell, but usually that's going out of the area too. You're getting online people bidding on it. Real estate's the other thing. I mean, real estate should be sold at auction. I mean, if you think about it, everything really good, the really good things they sell at auction. Christie's and Sotheby's sell the very best art and jewelry and furniture at auction. Barrett-Jackson sells the very best cars at auction. The very best farmland is sold at auction, and people still sell their house traditionally, stick a price on it, and we don't even know if that's the right price or not. They just have a real estate agent put a price on it and hope that somebody buys it. That seems so antiquated to me. Why not put it out there, create an event, and sell it at auction, and have the market tell you what your house is worth. Whether it's worth what you think it's worth, whether it's worth more than what you think it's worth, or whether it's less than you think it's worth. But the market will definitely dictate what it's worth. You have to let the market work in everything. And whether it's real estate or antiques or it's collectibles or it's guns or coins, the market definitely will work if you let it work.
And how does our auction man feel about eBay?
Well, I guess if you're comfortable with putting your own ad up, taking your own pictures, doing everything yourself, eBay's fine. But if you've got an estate to sell and you've got 1,000 items in that estate, and you have to take 1,000 pictures, and you have to ship 1,000 items, and you have to put 1,000 descriptions up, you're just not going to do it. So why not hire a professional auctioneer, just like you would hire a professional lawyer, a professional doctor, a professional anyone to do something that you couldn't do yourself. I'm a firm believer that if my car needs to be fixed, I don't fix it. I take it and have it fixed because I'm not a mechanic, but I'm a very good auctioneer.
So how does selling at auction compare with selling at a garage sale?
Most of the time at a garage sale, the prices are going down, not going up ever. Usually no one walks in and you've got a piece for sale for $50. Do they give you $50 for it? They offer you $25 for it. And then you start to make that deal in between somewhere. At an auction, you can start it at $25 and start to go up to $50.
And our auction man says the same thing can be applied to real estate.
And just to give you an example, we did an open house this last weekend in Janesville on Mount Vernon. from 1 to 2 on Saturday. We probably had close to 30 people go through that house in an hour. Now, I don't think there probably was an open house in Janesville this weekend that had 30 people go through it. I can't imagine that happening. They can't create that same excitement. There's no way a real estate agent can create that same excitement that an auction can create. We're telling them we're selling this next Saturday at 1 o'clock, and be there to bid on this, and you might get it for a really reasonable price, but you might not too. But be there. It'll be 10 minutes out of your day. There's no holding cost. This is for the estate. There's no holding cost. It's a 45 to 60 day process. It's over with. And they get fair market value.
So what happens if you've never been to an auction before? You don't know what to do. You don't know how to bid. And you're afraid that, what if I sneeze and the auctioneer thinks that I am bidding? Well, we address these questions, frequently asked questions, with our auction man. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think one of the number one myths out there is that if you go to an auction, you can't scratch your head, you can't touch your nose, you can't do anything, because the auctioneer will take you for a bid and you'll be bound to that bid. Well, that doesn't happen, okay? At our auction or anyone's auction, the auctioneer does not want to take you for a bid that you weren't bidding on. They want legitimate bidders, and they want that bidder to be happy with that process as they go through. And I can't speak for all auctioneers, but I guarantee you that's what we want. If you're not comfortable with bidding at the auction, then you can come, and one of our staff will be more than happy to stand beside you and tell you exactly what the auctioneer is saying, exactly, and pretty soon you'll figure it out by yourself. It's really not a secret language. And a lot of people think it is, that the auctioneer is saying a whole bunch of secret things, and 25 down, 30 down, 35 down, 40 down, 45 and 50 down, 55 and 60 down, 55 and 70 down, 80 down, 85 down, 90, and everybody thinks that's a secret language, but really it was $5 at a time, and we went from $25 to $90 there. And you have to remember that we only have a short amount of time to sell a whole lot of stuff. So we're moving through it pretty fast. So I would say that one of the things you need to remember is come to an auction, preview the auction if you can. And most auctions, I shouldn't say most, but our auction has a preview day the day ahead of time. And you can come and look all day long, Tuesdays, every week, and see what we're going to be selling for Wednesday. And if you want something, you can come to the auction, or if you don't feel comfortable coming, or if there's only one thing you want, and you just can't be here Wednesday night, you're more than welcome to leave a bid. And we have a good absentee bid system in place that we take 100 absentee bids a week on. The other thing I would say, if you're really interested in bidding at an auction, I would wear a bright color, because the auctioneer sees bright colors. And then you should find out if the auctioneer is left-handed or right-handed. Because if he's right-handed, he's going to look to the right side of him most of the time. And if he's left-handed, he's going to look to the left side of him most of the time. So if he's right-handed, you should be to his right. He won't miss your bid. And if he's left-handed, you should be on the left side. If you're really serious about being an auction person, this is like getting into almost auction 201 now. Because now you're advanced. Now you're an advanced auction goer, and you're learning a lot of the tricks of the auction trade. These are things that auctioneers know. People that go to auctions all the time know it. They may not know they know it even, but they know it. Yeah, they just happen to know where to stand, because that's where the auctioneer seems to catch my bid all the time. They don't realize that he's right or left-handed. Sometimes the auctioneer doesn't take your bid. One of the hardest things in the world for an auctioneer, I think, is when there's two people bidding and they're standing right next to each other or right in front and behind each other. Those are the two hardest things to do, because he's looking in that direction and somebody thinks they're in and they're not in. So as an auctioneer, usually what I do is I usually say, if you don't have a green shirt on, you're not in. So that kind of tells that person that doesn't have the green shirt on, that has maybe a red shirt on, that's behind the person in the green shirt on, that they're not in. So that they know, even though I'm looking at in that same general direction, that they're not in. And you have to have some ring help that kind of knows where you're at all the time. And you have to know where your ring help is, too. So you have to know when they take a bid, you better know where that bid came from.
Let's talk about ring help for just a second, Rich, because people who've never attended an auction before do not know what you mean by ring help and what their purpose is.
Okay, one of the main purposes they have is to catch bids They're the people that stand in front of the auction and help the auctioneer catch bids, or they move furniture. And then what their main job is, assist the auctioneer in catching bids. And in the meantime, they're moving furniture or moving things around. Like on a regular Wednesday night, we're moving a lot of things. On an antique and collectible auction, we're not moving anything because we're just showing it all on a big screen. Nothing gets moved. There's no chance of anything getting broke. One of the sad stories I heard this weekend was a man paid $900 for a pottery alligator, a rare pottery alligator. The ring help took it to him. A few seconds later, the ring person had left. The man was looking at his alligator, and it slipped out of his hand, and it dropped and fell on the floor. Now, he had to pay for it. It was his, because when you say sold, when the auctioneer says sold, it automatically becomes yours. And the auctioneer has created a contract with you. He had to pay for it. And he was heartbroken because he'd been searching for one of these forever. But so when we do a collectible auction where there's really fine antiques on it, we don't move anything. Nothing gets moved. We do that because we don't want people to have to worry about wrapping their stuff or holding 10 items in their lap. They can do it at their leisure then. They can wrap it, pack it, do however they want to do it.
And that helps eliminate the potential of dropping something.
Hardly
like
ever
that.
does anything get broke that way.
And how much was he out? Do you remember?
$900, whatever he paid for it, and a buyer's fee, so maybe $1,000.
So what other frequently asked questions are there?
I mean, what kind of things can you find at an auction? That's one thing that I can think of. You can find just about anything on an auction. I can't imagine what you can't find at an auction. Every time it seems like I buy something new, the next week it comes through the auction. It's just kind of a rule we have. If you buy it new, it's coming through the auction next week. So don't buy it new. Come to the auction and buy it, or be patient. And can I get a really good deal at an auction? I think you can. You have to be patient. You have to watch. There's deals at every auction. I don't care if it's a high-end Barrett-Jackson car auction, or if it's our auction, or whoever auction it is. There's a deal at that auction. You just have to be ready to buy it.
And I just want to give my story recently that I just shared with you today, that the online auction last week, there was a yarn winder, and I was very attracted to this yarn winder, but was worried that it would go for over $100. We had a discussion about that a few weeks ago, and here it went for just $35. So I'm now kicking myself in the butt because I didn't get on there. I wasn't brave enough to set a limit myself and say, I'm just going to bid and hope for the best. And
that's what you have to do. I mean, if you just set a limit and say, I would have bet $50 on that, you might have had it for $40.
Right.
So you might have had it for $10 less than your limit. You wouldn't be kicking yourself in the butt. And after a while, kicking yourself in the butt gets tiring. Yeah. Not only does your butt get sore, your leg is tired of doing it. So, you just don't want to keep doing it all the time. And the other thing is, I think people worry about how they're going to pay at an auction. Now, you can use credit cards, you can use debit cards, you can use cash. Most of the time you can use checks. You may have to have those authorized by someone at the auction company to use them. And it depends on the auction company. Every auction company has different terms and conditions. So I think you should check with the auction company you're going to be dealing with. Every auction company has different terms.
But what happens if you buy something and then change your mind?
I mean, I heard this question before. What if I change my mind after the auctioneer says sold? You have to understand that once the auctioneer says sold, he has created, and you have created, a contract with each other. And it's a legal and binding contract. So he can't take the item away from you, and you can't return the item. I mean, it works both ways. And there is no such thing as a tie bid at an auction. As much as that's been kind of out there, and some auctioneers will use that sometimes, but legally there is no such thing as a tie bid at an auction. Once the auctioneer says sold, and he says sold to number 135, and we'll say that's you, Laura, and then 148, who is Tom, says, hey, I thought I was in, and the ringman says, yeah, I had Tom all the time. I said, well, I'm sorry, but I sold it to 135. You could not say, I'll tell you what we'll do, we have a tie bid on the floor. That's not legal. You only have one item, you only have one buyer, you only have one contract. So keep that in mind. If you go to an auction and the auctioneer wants to do that, you probably have some legal precedents to say you can't do that.
So somebody might ask along that lines at a real estate auction, if they've bid, they've won, and then they find out they don't get the loan, then what?
They're out there earnest money then. They're going to pay X amount of dollars down day of auction. And in 25 years of selling real estate, that may have happened 3 times. So think of the thousands of pieces of property we've sold. The seller, too, this is a non-contingent offer. I'm not getting an offer based on you getting a loan, you selling your house, you inheriting a bunch of money, me as the seller fixing the roof, me as the seller fixing the basement, me as the seller fixing the septic, me as the seller putting a well in, me as the seller doing all these things for you just so you can move into my house. The seller likes it. It's a good process. How do I place a bid? I mean, that's a very simple question, actually. I mean, it depends on how you want to bid. The best way to bid is to get a bidder number and raise it when you want to bid. So if you're number 1, you raise that number every time you want to bid. People are going to see it. Some people are very sneaky in the way they bid. Let's put it that way. They don't want the rest of the crowd to see them bidding. So they will either sit in the front row and fold their arms and hold their hands in front of them so nobody can see them but the auctioneer, and they flick a finger at you or something. Or they will sit there and wink at you, and that doesn't make them very noticeable, but there are some that still do that, and we try to talk them out of that because we're not sure if they're winking at us because they like us or if they're just winking at the ring help because they like the ring help, or if they're just got a tick in their eye, or what's going on. We don't have any idea. We do have one gentleman, and it's kind of funny. He'll come up to me before the auction, and if he's interested in something, he doesn't buy a lot, but when he's interested, he says, I'm interested in that piece. I don't want anybody to know I'm buying it. While I'll have my coffee, and watch me when that comes up, and I'll have my coffee cup up to my lips as long as I'm bidding.
Oh boy!
And I'm thinking, okay, that's just fun. So we watch him, and he keeps his coffee cup up there, and it's just like holding your car. It's not much different than holding your number up all the time. As long as he has his coffee cup up there, I just keep taking him as a bid. We have another one that comes in. There's some stories I have here. They're not bad stories. They're good stories, actually. We have another guy that comes in. Now, we have Wi-Fi in the building now, so it works pretty well. He comes in. He brings his computer with him. He doesn't even sit in the crowd. He sits in the back of the room and sends bids in on his computer. That's on the online auction. He sits in the back of the auction building where I can kind of see him, but not really. And he's just sitting there, but he's sitting there, and he can hear everything that's going on, and he can hear everything that's going on at home. Then he gets up and pays for it. He's here and he pays for it.
And the reason for that is?
He doesn't want anybody to see him bidding.
But why?
He thinks that people will run him up if they see him bidding. I don't think that will happen, but that's up to him. He pays an extra percentage to do that. It makes no sense to me. He would be better off just bidding or just going home and doing it. He could go home and do it, but he stays here and does it.
We've reached the part of the podcast where listeners like yourself can submit photos and basic information about items that you want to know what it's worth. Submit your questions and photos to rich@beloitauction.com, and we may feature it in an upcoming podcast.
So the very first thing we have is this really neat Art Deco mesh purse by Whiting Davis. Whiting Davis might be the leading makers of mesh purses. And this one is in excellent condition. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this purse at all. And it's not very big. It's a little small purse. I mean, it might be 4 by 4 inches or 5 by 5 inches, something like that.
Perfect
without
for
the
living
chain.
History reenactors. I know a lot of living history reenactors that look for things like that.
Right, and there's a lot of people that use them yet. I mean, there's a lot of people that collect them. They don't use them, they collect them. This purse should bring close to $300.
So what's your next what it's worth item, Rich?
Well, that's a piece of ivory. And let's talk a little bit about ivory right now so we can get this ivory situation kind of cleared up. There's a new law out there that says you can't sell ivory unless you have documentation that it's 100 years old or it has an import tag with it. One of the two. Most ivory that we find has no import tag with it, and there is no way to prove that it's 100 years old. So all the ivory that's sitting out there right now is almost not for sale. Almost every major auction company I know has pulled every piece of ivory out of their auctions. They're enforcing this law. This is a dumb law. This is another dumb law. But this one is really dumb. There's a reason behind this law. I understand the reason behind it. The fact that you're enforcing laws on things that you can't fix, that are 100 years old, you can't stop that, okay? And a lot of that ivory was not done with poached ivory, with poached tusk. That's not, and that's why they're trying to stop, is all the tusk poaching. So they got to stop that. I understand that. I do understand that. But let's just shoot the poachers. To hell with it. Let's not shoot the people that have the ivory. You know, this piece I don't think is over 100 years old that we're looking at, and we're not going to sell it. We're pulling it out of the auction. So that's the ivory story today.
So this item.
There is no. I'm not putting a value on this item but I wanted to talk about this because of what it could happen. So if you have ivory, be careful selling it. Okay, you should have always been careful selling it because there were always some laws involved with ivory, crossing state lines. You couldn't do those kind of things. You had to be a little careful with ivory, but now you have to be even more careful if you sell it. The next one is a Yadro figurine. Now, Yadro figurines, if you don't know what they are made in Spain, and they're nice porcelain figurines, but they're kind of going the same way that the Hummels and those things have went. People don't want a bunch of figurines sitting around that are going to collect dust. That's what they don't want. So when we used to sell this figurine, we used to be able to sell this, and this one figurine maybe would bring $100. Now we have to put 4 or 5 Yadros together to make them bring $100. And they have to sell online. They won't sell any other way. But the same way with Hummels. So this is a $20 Yadro now. And it probably costs $150, somewhere in that range. There's Yadros out there that are 4 feet tall. They're huge. They cost $7,000, $8,000. They're unbelievably nice porcelain. But what would you do with a 4 foot tall piece of porcelain? Think about it. I've seen them.
If you have an item and want to know what it's worth, please send your picture along with basic information to rich@beloitauction.com. So what are Rich's top picks at auction this week?
Picks, okay. The first thing we have is this great bunch of wooden ladders. There's got to be almost 10 wooden ladders there. This might be the best repurposing item out there. You can use it for anything. I mean, you can use it for trellises. You can use it for shelving. You can use it for pot hangers. You can use it for anything you could possibly think of.
Decorating, or you can have a store. You
cut them in half. You know, you can do whatever you want, whatever. Just let your imagination run wild, and they're all solid wood ladders, and so you can paint them. You can do whatever you want. You can paint the rungs different colors. You can have a rainbow ladder. You can do anything you want to do. Go on Pinterest and look up wooden ladders, and if you can't figure out something, I guarantee you they've already figured it out for you.
Now, are these ladders being sold separately?
Each one will be sold separately. Choice of all the wooden ladders. The next item is a Frigidaire front load washer and matching dryer with a drawer pedestal unit with it. It's a nice setup. Came out of a house. They're remodeling their kitchen. They put all black appliances in there. They got rid of all their white appliances.
So what is Rich's next auction item?
Oh, that's another repurpose item, is a bird cage. This is a really nice metal bird cage that you could do so much with. It's about 2.5, maybe 3 feet tall. You can put a flower in it. You can put whatever you want in it. You can put a bird in it, I guess, but most people won't.
If you'd like to see more items that Rich has for auction today, stop in at his website at beloitauction.com or check him out on Facebook. Or if you'd like the auction man to shed light on a question you have about auctions or something you have in your collection, drop him a line at rich@beloitauction.com. The Call of the Auction Man is a Beloit Auction production. Beloit Auction is the proud winner of the 2014 WAA Best of Show Marketing Award.